Okay. Um, like I said, as a target individual, you have people around you to try to paint this false reality, and I'm gonna always put that in their face. And the thought process is just manipulated in ways that just, I mean, I try to maintain. When I make this video, it's sometimes hard for me to express what how they manipulate me, because it's becoming to a level where it's just nonsensical and comical at the same time with a lot of horror. These perps have no self-respect. They have to have no shame to implement this gaslighting method. You have people who you don't care about try to tell you who you are, and I'm like, yeah, of course, yeah, duh. You're mapping me. You're figuring me out. Oh no, you're painting me the right way, the way I am. That's what you're doing. They have no shame. It's validated, obviously, that these tactics of breaking you down consist of implementing and implanting a persona that's not you. And they have these perps who want you to accept these things. But for me, the validation I have and the reality of what they're part of is just so magical. That's why I think the level of torture I'm going to experience is going to be surpassing anything else. Because you have very smart, professional people that are now involved in, and they've been involved in, but they really want you to accept this persona with zero shame. And sometimes I look at them, it's like, you have no shame. You really? You think I'm going with this? Look at me. Like, when you look at me, you think I'm acceptive of this persona. Let me explain to you how stupid it gets. And I have to use that word stupid because the stupidity they make themselves get to is to that level. Now, the persona that they're creating is like, I'm this threat to children, but in fact, they tell me how they're going to frame me, right? And they're going to frame me by having, and this should just be the biggest indicative of who these people are and what they're really about and what the reality is. They're saying that they're going to frame me using a child, a teenager of some sort, right? Some underage kid. They have set the whole thing together. They prepped the whole thing together, and it's going to be a frame of some sort, right? Now, that alone should tell you how these people will present you as. They're telling you straight up they're going to frame you, right? And they still want to be, no, but we know we're investigating. We're just like, yeah, that's the part of the framing, right? It's part of the investigation. So that alone just destroy any like like way you should not look at it. These perps have no shame. Can you imagine try to convince you? No, it's so you. We're not manipulating you, but we're framing you. And they have no. I mean, these people are staying characters in ways I never. I was like, I can't believe people have no self-respect at this level. And then they get mad and start deflecting. You're gonna be raped. It's gonna be there. Excuse my language, but they say this. It's gonna be their assholes. Like, listen, if I get raped, if I get tortured when I get raped, if I get tortured when I get cut in pieces, whatever theatric of torture I'm gonna experience, I would choose this life of torture any day than having to stoop to down myself down to this level. It's funny, some of these people say things like, oh, we're gonna regret. I have no regrets. I'm like, who give a damn about your regrets? I don't care what you regret or what you don't regret. I'm just glad I get to see you for what you are. You're just an opportunist. It doesn't take much to do what you do. And the truth is, I know who really put me in this program. I've been validated in magical ways. And so I'm so thankful to God that at least before this happens to me, I can look at them truly for the low life that they are. I can see them fearful of things that I'm like, oh my gosh. For example, the reason why I keep saying Roy Moore so much, right, is because I know they can't say that name unless it's said in a way that is covered. Do you know what this man did or was accused of doing? He was allegedly picking up kids from the YMCA, right? So when I say Roy Moore, they gotta say it in ways that it's gonna be covered for me to not be able to hear that, or they get super nervous when I see that in the front of them. And by the way, they still try to be fierce, and tell me Roy Moore when I say it. Now, I hope it doesn't sound like gibberish. What I'm saying is, because the employer who put me in this program donated money to Roy Moore, and this man, I guess, is somebody who's who has some influence. They can't say Roy Moore unless they say it in certain ways. It seems like they have some restriction. He has nothing to do with me. He has nothing to do with what's happening to me. But Roy Moore is a name that has to be said in a very covered way. And the sad part is, these perps still try to sound fierce with by saying his name in such a covered way. and mystify a person who allegedly was picking up kids as young as 14 years old when he was an assistant here. For me, this kind of things helps me see them for the low life that they are, for the bottom fears that they are. But this is not just the perps that lives around me that have fear to say this name. I'm employed currently with people who are working for different entities, right? Organization. When I just even look at the name of this man, you see them just feel uncomfortable, don't even know where to look. I've gone outside and see somebody who is so he looked at me, so tried to intimidate me, and I say Roy Moore. He just looked straight and was so scared. So for me, I'm like, this is just as a weird fact that I have for me to put things back in perspective. These people are just bottom feeders. What they regret is regret that I get to say this name. I know I'm aware that my employer donate money to this man, and they have some kind of restriction, kind of ruin this whole gimmick. They have this character, this fierce femme fatale facade they wanted to present. To actually see them for the low life that they are, and the reality of things. Because what's happening today? They force me to get sexual stimulation with children. It's so nasty, from the babies to the older kids, even young adults. Even if the person looks like a teenager but is an adult. For example, this person, apparently she's a singer. I didn't know. At first I was like, how old is she? She's 25 years old, so she's a young adult in her mid 20s. But when I looked at her, I was like, I don't know. Her, she can go either way. She could be look like a late teen, especially in this picture. Especially, she got like, she can go either way. So they give me this weird feeling. Just because of that, I had to check her age. Like, is she like an adult? She's 25 years old. She's a young adult. But immediately this, and I felt it immediately. I was like, something is off. Because it's the kind of person where I'm like, I wouldn't tell exactly that you where you stand here. And so I realized that they were doing something to me, and it's like, this is the same thing they make me have sometimes with like this underage kids. Now they use that as a way to validate themselves. The way they've been painting me is today because they're framing me in this fashion, right? With this teenager and these kids. Which, to deflect that, they tell me I'm going to be raped. I'd rather get raped every day of my life than having to sell my own children to this. But they frame me in this fashion with their kids. These purposes you see here are all like trying to be badass. I have no regrets. What regrets would you have? Look at you. The regret is I know what you guys do. The regret is I know what this is about. The regret is before this happened to me, all these horrible things that happened to me, I get to articulate what happens, the reality of things. While you're working for governmental entities that clearly have issues that are pedophilia centric, you are here involved in a program that is renowned to manipulate the brain in a certain fashion, create false persona. You're going to hear that. I put that in their face. And so they try to use whatever they can to make me accepting of this persona. There's been this like girl, this like this was a contortionist that is like they've been using her. It's like, oh, you thought she's pretty. It's like she's some late teen and stuff like that. And it's like, oh, you thought she was pretty. It's like, okay, good for her. And now you see some map that you like teenagers of she trash ass, sad, pathetic low life. This person that she beautiful girl, good for her, but look like her body is like. But I'm not here to judge. My point is they try to look for whatever they can to make me accepting of these manipulations. So they're like, no, but you see, this 25-year-old looks like that, and you think she's Jesus, and creating stimulation that falsify to try to paint me in this fashion and try to tell me, no, that they into teenagers. No, I'm not. But I know who is that you can say his name or whatever allegedly was going on during his 30s. I know your job right now is to force me to get sexual stimulation. I know you're the person you try to paint me as is the person of the person that you can't say his name. That's why I'm so thankful for it. And I know the entities that run this program that empowers you to do these things to me actually have an issue. And I know that you're involved in a program right now where there's a teenage kid that's right now groomed to frame me, to dare to avenge this trash. I'm not here to embarrass these people. This is a singer who's 25 years old. They try to make me acceptive of how they manipulate to see her, which is, even though she's an adult of 25 years old, to me, make me acceptive of these pedophilia things they do to me. It's crazy. And they take whatever they can. It's like, no, by 2014, you're literally trying to paint this picture and selecting the manipulation you created, the narrative you created, and whatever you can to create this facade. While the reality is, we know who's the pedophiles. We know who's out here can't say Roy Moore unless you say it in such a cover way, but in a fierce way at the same time. So it's such a contrast. While working for governmental entities that reward them praying like this, renowned to manipulate people in these pedophilia ways. At this point, I'm not even just speaking for myself. I speak for others who spoke the same thing. This is why you're gonna listen to what's gonna happen here. Um, the testimonial of this woman living in North Florida. They start giving her the stimulation. Yeah, to young people and children. I didn't make that up. Her testimony was in 2007. You understand how long ago these tactics have been utilized for? You hear the pedophilia type of torture being utilized. You hear these men who say, "Oh, they have this, they alter the mind and they create this personality rebuilt, create a personality, making you something else." And then just wrap it up at the name they can't say what allegedly was doing when he was an assistant DA in his 30s, and then wrap up with the governmental entities that tend to have some issues that have been coming up over and over and over, years after years. Oh, and yes, finishing up what this is really about and how the mind has been altered, and they've been working on how they alter the mind since the 60s. Yeah. I will never identify with the manipulation. I know who I am, and trust me, these people that you see here will never make me think that I'm somebody I'm not. Whatever's going to happen to me, God give me strength. I don't care if these people have regret or not. They don't matter to me. I know who's really responsible for me being here, and they get theirs. I don't even care when and how. But please listen to this.
This person developed delusional disorder. This is a paranoid schizophrenia. But first of all, nobody develops paranoid schizophrenia in the 50s. In their 50s. This is, if you haven't developed it by 30, it's not. Then this technology exists. These nefarious programs exist. And it's hard to imagine for a person that, why would you do something like this? But if you think about the new type of warfare,
cognitive warfare.
Exactly, it's a cognitive warfare. You don't have to kill people that you are fighting against. You can just degrade their brain. You can
you alter their minds.
Yeah, alter their minds,
personalities,
and it's like Chinese torture. I mean,
that can pipe voices into an individual's head. And once you can do that, you can control them using neuro-linguistic programming techniques. You're rewiring their thought processes, and brains. And then, I don't know if I'm going to get into this, but there's something called hyper game theory. How do you, they want to see if they can manipulate people to do things that are irrational, but also walk them to their death. And so you can call it a eugenics program. And they need to sample all cultures, language throughout the world to define their probability matrices of which tricks, techniques, deception works. So how do you control the brain? Most people don't believe that. Well, you can't control me. I have my own free will. There's no...
Is Cheryl Welch telling the truth? Or are her claims absurd? Just another conspiracy theory that's impossible to prove. Maybe. But not if you listen to Nick Begich. I think there's some good evidence that Cheryl Welch and many of the other people I've spoken with have been victimized by this electromagnetic mind control experiments. The weapons of this century aren't bombs and bullets and ordnance, but electromagnetic energy targeting the human being, which is the greatest revolution in military affairs since gunpowder.
Baggage is an expert in government mind control. He is convinced the Pentagon has mastered a technology once thought to be science fiction, the ability to broadcast information directly into the human brain.
Our government began spending a lot of time looking at how to modify behavior of human beings. Going back to the Korean War, in fact, in a publication, Low-Intensity Conflict in Modern Technology, they have a chapter on electromagnetic weapon systems, being able to not just debilitate someone, but actually even to stimulate certain activities within the brain.
But how?
HARP is the High Frequency Active Auroral Research Project, which started as a joint effort of the Air Force and Navy. This is a very large array or field of antennas based on Alaska radio frequency antennas.
HARP antennas transmit powerful radio signals into the upper atmosphere to study the effects on wireless communications. But Megan says HARP can also be used for more sinister ends.
HARP has announced several other programs and campaigns, and there's two areas that I got very concerned about. One was weather modification applications. The other was the effect on human beings. If you can modulate a signal that the brain locks onto, recognizes, and begins to mirror or follow the frequency following response, the brain rhythms change, then it creates a chemical cascade within the brain and the emotions change. Now the resolution gets finer and finer and finer. And it used to just be about triggering emotions. You could change people's brain chemistry pretty readily, change their emotional state pretty easily. But when you get down to the idea of thoughts and being able to manipulate those, that requires a different kind of sophistication.
Can we hear some?
Would never take my will, and since we all know how the psychopaths groups work with what the TI says or does, then they started during the nights to run some kind of beam where suddenly I've been wakened up at 3 o'clock in the mornings and some kind of voice comes and say phrases, sound incomprehensible, and some other times can actually catch what is saying, ITS not my voice, a different voice, and I realized that they are trying to program for me to take it in a way that I won't notice a possible change in my behavior. Of course this is not new, because one main thing this program is out there, is called behavior modification for the undesirable, and that's one of the excuses this groups give for the neighbor TO join, deception. I learned to talk back, in my mind, during the process when I was awakened, and I would say demeaning things, that I cannot repeat it in this blog, you know what I mean. Since they had violated me for so long, I decided to aggravate them with words, in my mind, I can hear my own voice. I told them I'm going to make you pay for all of the years of torture that I've taken, and all you are going to hear is aggravation. For every single second of my privacy that you have taken away. From me and my family. Then said this, the slaves began a program of perversion. First was with my dog. I am very playful with my pet, and suddenly one day that I was petting him I felt strange, in the sense of the word. I thought, this is strange, and then afterwards that strange sensation continued. Then in that moment I realized that was impost, so I thought, look at this losers, don't know how to put me down, and they are doing this. So I told them that I know what you are trying to do, and I started laughing, and then I said again out loud, you'll never take my will, ASS, so just to show them that I meant what I said, I kept playing with my dog, and even though that attacks continue, I don't let them get me. Today they continue with the programming of perversion, but this time they are aiming in the use. A people, better said young people, also children and homosexuals. When I aggravated them I usually called demeaning names, and one of them is referring to homosexuals. For me all of the slaves are misfits, society haters, scumbags, etc. No, I don't have anything personal against them, homosexuals, but as my way to aggravate the slaves, and since they love to use children for the torture and stalking, street theater etc. Especially teenagers for the stalking at close range with an attitude, they are using them during my sleep in the perversion program, and so you can imagine what the slaves of torture are pretending to do to me. In the last days, as today September 9th, 07, anything I do, either watching TV or reading of whatever I'm doing, they brush me sort of say, I feel like I'm aroused all day and I feel the palpitations in my genitals for what I'm thinking, and since the attack comes so quickly, I realized my programming has been set on auto, in their central computers. No handlers could do something like this that quick. What made me realized the slaves are desperate to get me. Unfortunately for them, they are facing a strong wall where no matter how much their computers EAP me, I know I'm not changing. As I said, I feel like they've been set up a beam where I feel constantly stimulated. I'm talking sexually, like a heat in my genitalia.
It is dramatic. It's somebody trying to end my life. It's somebody trying to end who I am as a person. It's somebody trying to take over my mind, putting thoughts of pedophilia. This disgusting things. You saw where I was going with that first word. Disgusting things that I don't even want to talk about because it makes me sick. I don't even like those words in my mind. But it is what it is. So I have no choice now but to acknowledge that there are people in my surroundings or whatever they're doing.
It's what is referred to as malodorance. This is the alteration of the smell sensation so that I am often made to smell various things, including smoke, burning, dirty diaper, or baby powder, which they sometimes combine with the pedophilia type of torture, including.
This is a common breakdown tactic of belief systems and the human will. In no-touch torture, the techniques are more psychologically specialized for each target. Most common examples include homosexual targets that are forced with voices that are derogatory to their lifestyle and similar mental images. Almost all targets are forced to view child pornography in their mind.
Was simply fired. One employee purchased sexually explicit videos of young girls filmed by their mothers. He resigned. One employee estimated that he had viewed up to 1,400 sexually abusive images of children while on agency assignments. Not sure what actions, if any, were taken by him. One contractor arranged for sex with an undercover FBI agent. I think that you mentioned that. Posing as a child, he had his contract revoked. One CIA staffer was charged with child sexual crimes, and the employee was also under investigation for mishandling classified material. But sexual crimes involving children, says BuzzFeed, including the viewing of images of abuse, have been uncovered at other agencies that handle sensitive information. In a November 2009 report, the Department of Defense acknowledged that dozens of Pentagon staff members or contractors had such images. In 2014, the Inspector General of the Intelligence Community found that 2 officials from the National Reconnaissance Office, which oversees America's spy satellites, acknowledged viewing images of child sexual abuse during polygraph examinations. This is so disturbing. At a symposium in 2016, Daniel Payne, a top Pentagon security official, said that when workers' computers were examined, the amount of child porn I see is just unbelievable. Is this something that is happening in the general evil?
Allie, we're told, and when I was put through recruitment into the intel community, you're put through polygraphs, you're put through a rigorous selection process. Why aren't these people weeded out? Why are so many pedophiles allowed to be given top-level security clearance? Remember, these aren't just people walking in off the street and saying, hey, can I get hired? Can I get a job? You're put through an extremely rigorous background check screening process. It's called an SSBI, single scope background investigation. There are people, they interview you, they interview your family, they interview your contacts, they go through your online footprint, they go through everything. So why is it that when they're going through these footprints, they're not checking, these digital footprints, they're not checking for so many pedophiles?
Has come under investigation for links to the proliferation of graphic material. Called Project Flickr, some 5,000 individuals have been identified as having subscriptions to child porn sites, including many DoD-affiliated persons. So this ongoing national investigation has now prompted the House to introduce a bipartisan bill that would help the DoD stop the use of its network to, quote, possess, procure, or produce child pornography. Joining us to discuss this, investigative journalist Ben Swan. So Ben, the Pentagon already takes measures to limit worker access to stuff like porn by rolling out what they call the Personal Electronic Device PED policy, where workers have to drop off their phones and lockers before entering their offices. All their online searches are accessible by security if or when needed. Their Wi-Fi access is monitored in digital security sweeps. So how is this happening?
Well, it's happening because even though there is a certain amount of limitation on access, those who are working in the Department of Defense, clearly it appears to be thousands of individuals in the Department of Defense, are finding ways around this, specifically by using the Department of Defense IP addresses and also apparently peer-to-peer sharing within the department's network. So this study that was done on this issue, and it is pretty horrifying, Manila, to consider this. It shows that the Department of Defense ranked 19th out of almost 3,000 networks in terms of peer-to-peer sharing of child pornography. That is absolutely incredible. This bill attempts to essentially say, look, we're not doing enough to stop it from coming in, but we're also not doing enough in the Department of Defense to go after those individuals who are being recognized as the ones who are perpetrating this.
So Congress
Making this. The Defense Department releasing brand new details into an investigation involving child pornography and dozens of its workers and contractors, some with top-level security clearance. Not only are these very serious accusations, but investigators say some of the people involved were handling the nation's most sensitive secrets, potentially making this a matter of national security. Chief Fox Report correspondent Jonathan Hunt with the news. Appalling story, Jonathan. Do we know more about these people and their security clearances?
Well, we don't know their exact job titles, John, but what we do know is that they did appear to be working, some of them, at high levels across a range of government agencies. Take a look at this, for instance, the National Security Agency, the National Reconnaissance Office, and the very secretive Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency. Others also worked on actual military installations, including Edwards Air Force Base in California and also the California-based Naval Air Warfare Center. So they had access to military secrets in some cases and military hardware.
Are all these suspects under arrest?
They're not all under arrest. Others also worked on a range of government agencies. Take a look at this, for instance, the National Security Agency, the National Reconnaissance Office, and the very secretive Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency.
In 1965, DARPA launched Project Pandora, which studied the possibility of using microwave radiation to control human behavior. The project reportedly ended in 1969, but DARPA's investigation of how machines can affect and possibly control the brain continues to this day. Human mind can be altered.
And go a food courtin'. Or even went to the mall to get into the holiday spirit. One woman recalls that she was 14 and working as Santa's helper at the Gadsden Mall in 1977 when Moore first spoke to her and told her she would look pretty. 2 years later, when she was 16, he asked her out on dates. He hit on one of Santa's elves. Well, a true evangelical, he's putting the Christ back in Christmas. It wasn't just the mall, folks. One Alabama journalist claims that Moore was also banned from the YMCA for his inappropriate behavior of soliciting sex from young girls. And don't forget, he did that while he was assistant DA. The assistant